Hi everyone, I hope you guys are all well. It's getting closer and closer to Christmas, I can't believe it. I've only got 4 working days left before I finish for Christmas, which is just absolutely insane. But I'm actually really excited about that because, as I said, because it's my December picks. In the gap between when I finish work and Christmas, I'm going to be reading Anna Karenina and I'm so excited to get onto that. So even though it's like, yeah, it's the month is drawing closer and closer to an end, I'm actually, counting down the days until I can start reading Anna Karenina. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the book I've been reading this week, which I have just literally finished reading. And that is, of course, The Lost World by Michael Crichton. I had read Jurassic Park in June. It was one of my June picks. Actually, it was the first one, I think, of my June picks. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And I automatically went out, bought a copy of this, and stuck it in the jar, but I've not picked it. So thus, when I came to do my December picks, I was like, I have to read this book. I absolutely loved the first one. I have to read this book. Basically, what this is about is that it's set 6 years after the first book, Jurassic Park, and follows Ian Malcolm, who in the film is Jeff Goldblum. Now, in the first book, in the first Jurassic Park book, he's basically described as dying. There's there's no you don't really see have it described his body or his dead body or anything like that. There's kind of like a head shake between a couple of characters, and oh god, Ian's gone. And it killed me. Ian was my absolute favorite character in the Jurassic Park book, and so it was quite shocking when I picked up this book and find he's our main character. He got brought back to life. I don't know if that was something that Michael had planned already, that he was going to give you that, or if it was a case of that the response to the initial book, people really wanted to bring Ian back. And so he just kind of talks about how Ian has been having all these medical procedures, and he had 6 months of treatment in intensive care and such to get him back to normal, or as much normal as possible, but he still walks around with a cane and he has a bad limp and such. But yeah, so Michael brought him back, so I was really thankful that Michael did that, because I just loved Malcolm so much. And so yeah, so this is set 6 years after the first Jurassic Park book, and Ian is, he's doing his teaching, he's carrying on, kind of going back to what he was before the whole Jurassic Park incident. And he gets approached by a man who he knows from having met before, a guy called Dr. Levine, who is certain that there is this kind of world where dinosaurs are, and it's a world where life is kind of carried on in a sense that they could go to for studying, and he's absolutely obsessed with finding this world. And Ian just kind of goes, no, it doesn't exist, don't, just, I'm not interested, go away. But Levine goes off to find the island, and his colleague, Dr. Thorne, who also knows Malcolm, gets a message, he gets a phone call, and it keeps on breaking up and such, but it's from Levine, and he's saying how he's found it, and it sounds like he's in trouble, and then suddenly it cuts out. And so Dr. Thorne goes off on this mission to find Levine, and Ian tags along with him. And it's all about what happens on this island, which is Isasona. So it's south of the island where the events of Jurassic Park happened. And there's a couple of stowaways along for the ride, Albie and Kelly, who are students of Dr. Levine, and they're students and they're also research assistants to him. So, in comparison to the film, which I'll talk about in a minute, Kelly is the only one of the two who's in it, and she is like 11 years old, which is very different from the book. But yeah, it's all about what happens with them. And we have Sarah Harding, who becomes part of the team as well. And there are other people involved who want to find the island as well, are bad guys of the piece. And yeah, it's all about what they find and everything, and trying to get the hell off the island. That is the key mission: get off the island, and the various things that happen along the way. Now, I've been thinking about this quite a bit throughout the course of reading The Lost World, and I have come to the conclusion I do like it. It's a good book. It's a good read. But it's not as good as Jurassic Park, in my opinion. Now, Jurassic Park, there are a lot of sections discussing, is this really ethical? How can we be, in charge of these animals? They have their own instincts. We don't know what their main abilities are, and how they will react to certain things. They've never been studied, so how can we claim to be their masters, in a sense? And there are all of these various ethical questions got asked, and those kind of questions were being asked again in the second one, but instead they were relating to how dinosaurs died, basically, and how are they evolving, and the whole thing with the frog DNA stuff, which is covered in the first Jurassic Park, kind of gets called into play with this as well. But yeah, it talks a lot about how things move on, how things evolve, how we evolve. And I found that really interesting, but sometimes I just felt like that statement was the exact same thing was being said, just using like a different metaphor or a different analogy. That was my irk about it. And I found the discussion on the ethics of man versus beast, if that's what you want to say, in the first book, absolutely fascinating to read, and how the different characters felt. And there, throughout the discussions about evolution and everything in this book, from the different characters' perspectives, was interesting to read as well. But I didn't feel as what's the word I'm trying to say? So enthralled, so caught up in it, so wanting to put my point across. If I'm right there in that debate, I wanted to put my hand up and go, oh, here's how I feel. But I didn't necessarily feel that in the second book. I like the characters in this second book, but I feel I felt really one of them, I was like, oh, Michael, give them a break, please. And that was Sarah. I like Sarah. I'm glad that she is one of the people who make it off the island at the end of the book. So thank God, because of the amount of shit that Michael throws at her. And to even begin with, there's a sequence where she is going to the island and it's really stormy and it's really horrible, and she gets caught up with this attempted murder on her before she even gets to the island. Thrown off into a storm, and she gets washed up on the island, and then all this other stuff happened. And I was like, Michael, just, if you want to kill her, kill her. Just stop torturing her like this. This is not fair. It was just, sometimes I felt a bit funny about how Sarah, all the shit got thrown at Sarah in this book. I liked the development of character as well. I found Ian very interesting. He's still cynical, just as he was in the first book, but it feels like it's on a different level. In the first book, he was, you know, very much the mathematical theorist. He knew about dinosaurs, different types of dinosaurs, but not necessarily the same way. And where you have, you know, various other like paleontologists and such experts in the first book, and he was the guy talking about, you know, the theory, mathematical theories and such, in the first book off to the side. It's kind of like the roles have been switched. So suddenly this mathematical theorist and everything is also is telling them all the paleontology information that they need to know, and the stuff that he'd learned from being at Jurassic Park in the first book. So I liked that, how he had developed and everything. I liked his interaction with Kelly and Albie as well. I really like those two as characters. I think they're very interesting because yes, they are kids and they, you know, they get freaked out by stuff and they don't necessarily understand what the heck's going on. But my God, they will do anything. Anything for everyone, and they see stuff in slightly different way so that they're able to figure out things quicker than other people are able to. Sometimes in regards to characters, I felt you could see them as a bit pantomimey, especially Dodgson. Who's one of our bad guys, who was involved with the attempted murder on Sarah that I mentioned before. I know that's a bit of a spoiler, but it slipped out and I couldn't, you know, I was only when I was thinking afterwards, I was like, oh yeah, that's a bit of a spoiler. So yeah, sorry for that spoiler. Yeah, he was a bit of a caricature in some senses. When it comes to the actual structure of the writing and such, it's very strong, just as in the first book. The only, well, I don't know if you can necessarily say it's criticism. As I said, you had the discussions about how animals evolve and that, which kind of felt like it was a bit samey throughout. But in this one, in Jurassic Park, you had these kind of spurts of action, and then of course you had the end sequence, which you'd expect, which, you know, totally fine. This one, you had the spurts of action, but they were a lot more regular, and there were a lot more of them. And then suddenly this like entire 100, maybe a bit more pages, and bear in mind this is only just over 400 pages long, this book, probably like 100 or so pages. It's just like one massive action sequence, so it felt like you're constantly running, you're constantly on the go, and sometimes I was a bit like, can we slow this down just a little bit? But that's the only thing I can think of with the pace and such. I would definitely read it again. For certain, I would, even though I have issues with, you know, the little things of characters and the way that it's paced. Even though I have this criticism, I still really enjoyed it. I would definitely read it again. I definitely recommend it to people. But I think the Jurassic Park has got a stronger structure, a stronger story, and I'm kind of glad that because of the way that it ended and what Malcolm says he expects will happen due to things that they find and, you know, all that jazz, it kind of feels like Michael's going, okay, so there is a potential there could be another sequel, but I don't really see it happening, and I personally don't really see it happening. So I'm not finishing this book going, oh my God, I need the next story. But I know that there wasn't another story that Michael wrote. I felt like that's actually a really satisfying way to end it, and I'm really happy with the choice that he made for how it ended. Yeah, it was an interesting journey, let's say that, but it's a journey that I'm really happy that I went on, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, of course, everybody knows the Jurassic Park films. This is the box set that I have with the 3 Jurassic Parks and the first Jurassic World in the box set. So yeah, it's the orange one. So as I said, Jeff Goldblum comes back as Ian Malcolm in the second Jurassic Park film. The second Jurassic Park film is actually my least favourite. I don't mind watching it, but I'm not like, I really need to watch this film. It's very clever with, like, you know, the raptor chases and, you know, all that lot. But now that I've read the book, I don't think I like it even more. They changed a lot of stuff. It almost feels like it almost feels like it's a case of, okay, let's take the characters' names and pretty much just throw away the book and just not and rewrite the entire thing. You know, so as I said, like, Kelly is one of Levine's research assistants. She's a student and everything. She is transformed into Ian's, like, 11 or 12-year-old daughter who tags along. She's a stowaway onto the island. Sarah's interesting in the film. Now that I've read her, this whole thing about how they're dating but they're not dating, and, you know, complex things to do with her and Ian's relationship, and how she's already on the island when Ian gets kind of contracted to go to the island and everything. That's a load of crap. That's a load of fiction. And I know this is fiction, but you still, you know, separate from the book, it's a load of crap. I prefer book Sarah, if I'm honest. I mean, they are both strong women, but I feel like I said, Sarah gets a lot of shit thrown at her during this book, and I really felt for her throughout the course of this book. But in the end, she you know, she deals with it all. She was like, yeah, what? I can handle this. And she handles it. And I love her strength. I love her courage. I love her determination. Her willingness to practically throw herself to a T-Rex or, you know, whatever other dinosaur, in a split second in order to save everyone else without thinking about herself. I love those characteristics of her in the book. And in the film, even though she is, you know, this strong woman, it's not the same. It's really not the same. She's a bit annoying in the film, if I'm honest. And certain other things to do with the film compared to the book, it is just, like I said, it's like they've taken the characters' names and then just thrown away the book, which is such a shame, because I think there's certain things that happen in this book that would be really interesting if they did them on screen properly, but they didn't. So what can you do? But yeah, it's my least favourite of the Jurassic Park films, but I'd still watch it if it was on, you know, on TV, or if I was rewatching the trilogy and Jurassic World films. Yeah, I'd watch it. I wouldn't necessarily enjoy it, but yeah, I'd watch it. But this I would absolutely read over and over and over again. I love it. But even though I have issues, and even though I like Jurassic Park, the book Jurassic Park more, Michael has always shown how great he is at character building, world building, character development, everything in his writing, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. But even though I had my problems, I still loved it. So yeah, it's probably, I would class Jurassic Park as a 5 out of 5. This, I would give it a 4.5. I think that's, you know, really strong, really loved it, but I did have my problems. But yeah, that's my thoughts on The Lost World by Michael Crichton. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. You can leave me a comment in the comments box below, or you can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. It's entirely up to you. I'll let you decide. And I will be back shortly to announce what book I'm going to be reading next out of my December picks. Alright then guys, bye!